Yeah, I mean, the Browns beating the Ravens. The Ravens sort of had this coming down. They started the season poorly, losing 2 games, but like at the same time, you were like, it was against the Chiefs to open the game, and this team's got something about it. And then obviously they've just been on this trajectory, Lamar Jackson MVP conversation, along with Jared Goff, obviously. But the Browns came and conquered, I suppose. It just felt to me, James, like a bit of not an old school AFC North game in terms of like running the ball and hard-nosed defense, but like an old school as in like really tight, like don't make mistakes.
Yes. Yeah.
Who's going to blink first? That sort of thing. It was the first game we've seen Jameis Winston starting for the Browns as well. He had a pretty decent day, 27-41, 334 yards, 3 touchdowns. And then the Ravens probably going to be looking back at this game thinking, if they don't get the number 1 seed in the AFC in the playoffs, they can look back at these sort of games and think, gosh, if that had just gone a different way, maybe. So we'll start with the Browns to begin with. I mean, what were you impressed with in this game? Because, there's been a lot of very unimpressive moments with the Browns this year.
Yes, very much so. And you have to say that they just looked a much more competent offensive outfit with Jameis Winston under center. There goes sentences you didn't think you'd say in 2024. Yeah, I mean, 401 total yards, 29 points, of season highs for them in a season of very, very poor lows, unfortunately. And obviously injuries have played a factor in that as well. They haven't been that game-wrecking defense that they have been over the past couple of seasons. But at the same time was that, you're going up against, I think the Ravens are currently the league's worst passing defense. And so, is it a case of just the right matchup at the right time for Cleveland? But again, there's that sort of heightened, everything heightens when it's those division rivalry games. So it wasn't, a huge surprise in the end, I don't think, for many, because you get these games and anything can happen. Obviously, a lot of people would have assumed that the Ravens would have run away with it, but I think that the Browns did a good job of keeping Derrick Henry out of the game for long stretches. He got, I think it was a 39-yard run that you sort of thought, okay, yeah, here he goes. And then he's sort of had the touchdown, which was a couple of yards in the fourth quarter, but he was pretty absent for long stretches of the game. Had 11 carries, fewest of the season. He only ran for 73 yards. So credit to the Browns for making life difficult for them. And obviously, fair play. Winston found his connections with Tillman, played okay football, but got away with a couple. I think the missed opportunities by the Ravens that will be ones that they'll rue. Kyle Hamilton in particular, that moment, fairly standard Jameis throw normally gives you 1 or 2 a game where it gives you the opportunity to go and get him. But they played okay. They didn't look like, obviously, they're going to really be setting the league alight anytime soon, but will be encouraged by just making that little bit of a step forward. If they can, get the run game going a little bit more, that would help. But, Jameis, he just makes things interesting, doesn't he? I know he's not a favourite or anything like that, and he's not necessarily the guy that you would want on your team, but he does keep things fun. There is just something about him that you sort of can't take your eyes away from. And I think it's just that unexpected nature of what every throw could be. Could be sublime, could be ridiculous, and anything in between,
Considering a week, like 2 weeks ago, they were a team that couldn't get eyes to a screen. Suddenly, you're like, it's got must-watch TV with Jameis Winston involved, isn't it, in a way? We nearly did get to see, like, Lamar magic on that Hail Mary at the end. And after, obviously, the Commanders won. Not that I recall whether it was going on at the same time. I can't remember whether they were on the... No.
Commanders were the late.
Commanders was later in the evening, wasn't it? Yeah. So it would have been fun if we'd seen one Hail Mary for the Ravens win and then the Commanders win with Hail Mary as well. But you're right. You know, they only had 80-yard rushing, but they were effective in the pass game, and that's what we've critiqued about the Baltimore Ravens for all the season. Is they're the best rush defense going, but if they want to be a Super Bowl contender, they need to sort out this passing offense. And the Browns really took advantage of that. Do you think that's sort of it's becoming the blueprint now of how to beat the Ravens?
It seems that way, yeah. I mean, you know, having your starting corners in Marlon Humphrey and Nate Wiggins out, that's going to make things a little bit more difficult. You know, you're relying on second stringers and backups or rookies or whoever it is. So they are missing a lot of experience there. But yeah, I mean, it's been too easy. It's just been way, way too easy. And a couple of years ago, it sort of felt like it was the other way around. Like the defense was really carrying them, getting a lot of turnovers, causing a lot of havoc. You know, and we mentioned Kyle Hamilton before. You know, he was playing at all-pro level, and he's still playing well. Don't get me wrong. He's just not getting. He's not getting to the line as quickly. He doesn't seem to be creating as much in the backfield. You know, he nearly had one today, and if he'd have had that would have, I think, sparked a little bit more confidence in the Ravens defense. I mean, Eddie Jackson had opportunities for interceptions, I think, on 2 occasions. Both went straight through his hands. So they've just been sloppy, unfortunately, and you can't afford to be that if you have aspirations of making the Super Bowl. But by the same account, you know, Rashad Bateman, a big 3rd down drop in the 4th quarter when the Ravens were down by 3 that would have taken them, you know, a lot further downfield and perhaps would have sparked them into taking the lead late on, which they perhaps could have defended, perhaps would have encouraged them to run the ball a bit more and burn the clock down and give more to Henry and see if he can just do the thing that Henry does, which is plow his way through in the last few minutes and just destroy teams' confidence. But obviously we never got there. So fair play to the Browns. They came, I think they had a strong game plan and they stuck to it. And they got a bit lucky, and that's sometimes just what you need.
Luck, haven't you, in these games?
Of course.
Yeah,
they've had none the rest of the year. So I think it's fair that you do a little bit in one game.
I think it's these sorts of games where, like, if the Browns can squeeze out a few wins in this division, then the division can open up and it can be a bit all to play for. But I say that, like, I think that's more. I mean, I don't trust my confidence with the Browns or the Ravens, or the Bengals to then top this division and make a deep Super Bowl run. I've sort of said this a few times with Ravens have losses. This is the anomaly. Like, we have every confidence that they are going to go maybe to the AFC Championship. Like, well, they're in the conversation for that, aren't they? I mean, they have to be. Them, the Chiefs, the Bills are the 3 teams that you more than likely see going to there, you know.
And in that hierarchy, I would perhaps put the Ravens 3rd at this moment in time. But I, you know, wouldn't be surprised if they got there either. You know, if they were able to, in this sort of run, pick off, you know, the Bills somewhere along the line or something, if it came to it. But by the same account, they are going to have to step it up. They are going to have to improve, and that defense is going to have to come good. There's still time for that. You know, like you say, this could be a blip, and they could go on another 5 or 6 game win streak, and you're like, okay, everything's fine. And they take that confidence into the playoffs, and maybe they lose one at the end when they rest key players or whatever else. You know, that game where they just don't need it anymore. But like you say, it's a weird division. I think it's the Ravens to lose.
Yeah.
But, you know, I've seen stranger things in football for the Ravens to still lose it at this point. You know, there's that other team that's in there. What are they called? The Pittsburgh, the Steelers or something like that. I think they could do okay as well if they can pick up a victory. I think it's tonight. You might know a little bit more than me.
I know a lot more than you. Don't worry I know that for sure. Yeah, I mean that is the issue with this Ravens team is that, you know, they have had injuries in the past. Like, their seasons have come crashing down because of injuries to players like Lamar. But I don't know when I'll get off the fence of that was a blip in the system. I think the blip in the system is They allowed for 321 passing yards in this game. They've allowed for 2,331 in the season, which is 32nd, and they're last in receiving touchdowns as well with 17 in the whole. They have to figure that out. That is how teams will beat you. That's the bit you've got to work on, and that's going to have to. They're going to have to do a lot. They're going to have to do a lot to then shut that down for them if they want to be at that Super Bowl contender at this time. So let's have a look at the rest of Sunday and some of the matchups happening. Like I said, a lot of close games. Excuse me, sorry. I'm also a little bit sick as well, so I'm persevering. So Cardinals beating the Dolphins with a field goal to win the game 28-27. Our good friend Andy Davis from Across the Pond podcast was at that game, which being a Dolphins fan, I'm sure was not that enjoyable for that day. The Falcons.
Good to see Tua back at least.
Very good to see Tua back. Yeah, it is good to see him back, and they look so good with him. Like, he sort of shrugged off every sort of negative thing I've ever said about him in that game in a weird way because it just looks so much better. The Falcons.